In Chicago, you know that all sports rock. The Bears, Hawks, Bulls, Cubs, and Sox. Pick your favorite, you can choose. As long as the Packers lose. For everything you need to know, it's Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago.
Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. This is your host, Sean. Our friend Alex is off tonight. He's out having a good time. Wishing him a happy time off. He will be back next week talking about the NFL draft with us, which should be fun and exciting. But first, I'd like to thank sponsor the Rockford Ice Hogs. If you're not familiar with the Rockford Ice Hogs, they're the AHL minor league affiliate of the Chicago Blackhawks. What does that mean for you? You get to see the stars of tomorrow today at family-friendly, affordable prices. Make sure you head on over to icehogs.com, get yourself a hat, shirt, jersey, tickets, and more. Tell them Swerski Sports sent you. Hey, everybody. Even though Alex is not here, we are going to be having a great time tonight talking about what I said we'd talk about last week is a 7-round mock draft for the Chicago Bears. I know this is all just absolute guesswork, but if you take a look at kind of a conglomerate of everybody's big boards, have Dane Brugler's and you have PFF and all these like big draft big boards, you can kind of get a picture of where you expect guys to get drafted, and some are going to go a little higher, some a little lower. But you at least have a good sense of where things are going to happen. And I tried to use that with where the Bears draft positions are, the needs they have on this team, what the depth of that position looks like. You know, if the position depth falls off after that round, you need a player at that position, you probably want to pick them earlier rather than wait. I tried to put all of that in and take a good stab along with players that I think are good and would fit well with what the Bears are trying to do. And I did this 7-round mock. So let's just jump in. And by the way, no trades in here. I fully expect the Bears to try to move around and get some extra draft capital by moving back out of that number 25 spot. But that is, if it's hard enough to guess what the Bears will draft, it's going to be just next to impossible to guess what they'll trade and where they'll move. So I have a 7-round mock for the Bears starting at number 25. I have them drafting Caden McDonald, defensive tackle out of Ohio State with the number 25 pick. Caden McDonald is 21, and on tape, there were games where he was absolutely the most dominant player on the tape. And that's wild when you consider that he was on a defense with Caleb Downs, Sonny Styles, and Arvell Reese, who potentially all could go in the top 10. And there were times where he was the best player. He's an absolute stud at stopping the run. I don't know how much pass rush you can honestly expect from him in his career, let alone as a rookie coming in. Maybe it takes time. Maybe he never becomes a super big pass rush guy. But if he can absolutely improve the run defense for this team like I expect him to, that allows a player like Shamar Turner to be even better. So if Caden McDonald can come in and help stop the run, that is going to improve the pass rush in general. Because if you think about it, the best odds you have at getting to the quarterback is when it is farther to go for a first down. So if it's 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9 versus 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, you're way more likely to get the sack. Also, you put yourself in a position where you're making that team one-dimensional. You're reducing the playbook they have when they're having to go long, and you're making them so it is just a pass play. They've got to pass to get that down, and you can just pin your ears back and try to go after the quarterback. It makes life a lot better for your pass rushers. I think you can get away if your pass rush is Montez Sweat, another year closer to being at his peak, Austin Booker, Dio Odengbo, and Shamar Turner. I think you can live with that. I don't think it's ever going to be fantastic, but I think you can live with that if you can stop the run. And I think putting a Caden McDonald in there is going to improve that run defense. With the 57 pick, I have them taking Antonio Williams, wide receiver out of Clemson. He's 22 years old, and last year he had something like a 1.7, 1.8% drop rate. So he hangs on to the ball, and you didn't see a ton of big plays from him, but I think he has a lot of big play capability. He's a guy that's going to find the soft spot in the zones and work to be able to get open. He does have punt return ability, and I like what he could do, especially considering Caleb Williams, when he starts scrambling or a play breaks down and he's looking for a safety valve. I think Antonio Williams could be an absolute gem of a safety valve that could make big plays out of nothing. I know DJ Moore was a big part of this offense, and losing him, you expect more production out of Colston Loveland, out of Roma Dunze, out of Luther Burden III. Those, you expect a lot out of those guys, and Luther Burden really showed a lot coming on at the end of the year, and we hope Roma Dunze shows us why he was a top 10 pick. Colston Loveland showed a lot what he could do, and with another year under his belt in a full preseason, you expect a lot out of those three, but after that, the depth just sort of drops off. I think Antonio Williams, you're not over-investing at number 57, and you're still adding a good, talented player. With the number 60 pick, I have them taking A.J. Halsey, the safety out of LSU. You would love to get one of the, like a Caleb Downs or a Thieneman or the kid out of Toledo, but, the things don't always fall the way you would hope. So I have them taking A.J. Halsey. He's 22 years old and 6 foot, 220 pounds. He's a big play guy. He'll jump on balls. He's a big hitter. He's going to need coaching. He doesn't take necessarily the best angles at times. He can get caught up in his own way. I think he's going to need some help, but I think at number 60, he's a guy that can definitely become a starter for you, and you expect him to come in and be the starter. With the number 89 pick, I have them taking Sam Hecht, the center out of Kansas State. At that point, you're probably taking maybe the best center in the draft at number 89. And I have neck and neck Sam Hecht and Jake Slaughter out of Florida. I kind of like Jake Slaughter a little better, but the Bears sent a lot of coaches and scouts and the GM all to Kansas State's pro day, which means that they're really checking out somebody on there, and I can't see who else it would be other than Sam Hecht. He's 23 years old, 6'4", 303 pounds, 0 penalties last year. A really smart player. He's got the ability to stay on the field. He played in 25 straight games. So I think he's a guy that Garrett Bradbury's probably your starter, but it bridges the gap to next year. You have Sam Hecht as your backup if something happens to Bradbury, and he can just step in at that point. Otherwise, he has a whole year under his belt to learn the playbook, get used to Caleb Williams, and hit the ground running when he comes into camp next year as the starter. You very well could wait and draft a center next year and get that full 4 years out of him. But the problem is if you do that, a couple of issues come up. One is, what happens if the draft doesn't fall your way and the guy you identify goes a couple picks before you? At that point, if you haven't secured your center of the future, then you're scrambling, and then you're going to have to try to find a second tier kind of guy rather than the guy you wanted if the draft doesn't fall your way. And when you expect the draft to fall one way, there's a good chance that it's going to throw you for a loop, because the NFL draft is wild, and you can't count on anything. So also is what happens if there's not a good center class next year? You don't really like anybody and you have to reach to get him. It's good to just be able to get a guy now. Sam Heck falls into your lap, and so I find taking him at number 89. With the 129th pick, I have them taking Markel Bell, tackle out of Miami. He's 22 years old. This kid is huge. 6'9", 350 with an 87-inch wingspan. 87-inch wingspan is just enormous. He uses those long arms really well. He's athletic. He led the team in snaps last year. He's going to need some coaching, but you're not expecting him to come in and be at pick 129 to be a week 1 starter. He's there if you have injuries. He's there to learn all season and come in next year to be a guy that can compete for that starting spot. I think strikes a nice balance of he's a talented player, but at pick 129, you're not locked into him having to be a starter to be, for that to be a successful pick. Also, it's a good insurance policy if Ozzy Trapillo has a setback with that injury or it becomes a long-term concern. And if Ozzy Trapillo does come back and healthy, you can just plug him in, and Markel Bell is a great swing guy. But he's a guy that does need some coaching. Some of his technique isn't quite there, but he's so big with such long arms that he uses well. Gave up 0 sacks last year for a really good Miami team. Then you start getting to those later round picks, 239, 241, and it's going to be next to impossible to pick those because there's so many players that fall into that range. Every team is going to identify who they like better in those spots, and sometimes it's going to be scheme fit. What's good for the Bears may not be good for the Packers, might not be good for the Chargers, etc. Also, you're looking at a trait. Those players at the end of the draft aren't really full-fledged players that you expect to project well into the NFL. You're looking at traits that you can buy low on. So I picked 2 guys here. And so the first one at 239, I have Damani Jackson, cornerback out of Alabama. He's 23 years old. He's a 2-year starter at Alabama, played at both USC and Alabama. He was a record-setting sprinter in high school. So he's a fast guy. He's a 4'4", 6'1" cornerback. That is a skill right there. Being 6'1" as a cornerback and 4'4" speed. That is something you can buy. He's got some flaws in his game. His hips are a little tight, a little slow to respond to some double moves. He's got a risk for giving up big plays, but at that size and speed, special teams is going to be his calling card as you kind of help work him into a potential, real cornerback in this league. So I like Damani Jackson coming out of a big-time Alabama program. And then 241, I have another Alabama teammate, is Deontay Lawson, 23 years old. He's a green dot guy. Started for Alabama for 3.5 seasons. That's incredible. That doesn't really happen. He had an ACL tear that ruined his junior year. He was a guy that people expected really big things from, but the injuries kind of set him back. So you're getting a guy that you expected to be a first-round talent that you're going to get in the 7th round. That's a flyer I'm willing to take. He doesn't have track speed. He's not like a track speed guy, but on the football field, he is so fast because he can read and diagnose plays so quickly that he just reads and reacts like lightning and gets to the play. So he's a fast football speed guy, and he's a 2-year captain on Alabama. That counts for something. That's that kind of leadership you're looking for. So some of these guys in there are actual leader guys. Deontay Lawson, Sam Hecht is a captain type guy. You're bringing in not just good players, but leadership type guys. to be better in the locker room. So that's really all I had with the Bears. I wanted to do that 7th round mock. Odds are if I'm lucky, I get one of those picks right. And it's not really trying to predict. It's talking about, where players are falling. If you look at the big board, you look at the way the mock draft simulators fall, where the Bears are picking. These are the types of players that could be available. You're going to have to, early on, you're going to get a guy that you feel more confident on because that's your first round pick. And as you go on, every player is going to have more and more warts that you've got to be able to weed through those warts to find the diamonds in the rough. And if you can do that, like last year, you had how many guys come in and be key contributors to the Bears from that draft class. You had Colston Loveland. Obviously, Colston was huge portion of that Bears offense. Luther Burden III came in. He was fantastic for the Bears. Ozzie Trapillo right away became a starting left tackle. Shamar Turner got hurt. Ruben Hippolyte played a lot, but I don't know if I'd call him a key contributor. Zoff Frazier didn't play at all. Luke Newman made the team as a 6th round pick. And Kyle Monungai. Kyle Monungai was a huge contributor running back. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4 main contributors and 2 potential quality backups out of that draft. That is awesome. That is awesome. If you can do that every year, you're going to be a contender for a long time if you can hit on those kind of draft numbers. So next week we will be full on Bears mode because the draft starts this Thursday, and I will be at the CHGO draft party with my friend Big Dave. And if you don't have plans for the NFL draft this weekend, definitely go to Joe's on Weed and go to CHGO's website to get tickets for it. It's going to be a good time, and a lot of diehard Bears fans there talking about the draft and watching with bated breath as the Bears come up on pick 25. And I fully expect the Bears to do everything in their power to trade back. My hope is that they can use that and get extra draft capital for the 2027 draft, which is going to be a much better draft that's predicted. But even if you can move back and get draft capital for this year, I think that's going to be very helpful. So I fully expect the Bears to attempt to do that. Let's see if they can make it happen. Before we talk too much baseball, which is going to be the bulk of this show, I do want to quickly mention some Bulls and Blackhawks things. So, Bulls, we are about 3 weeks away from the NBA draft lottery drawing. So it's on May 10th. And for several years now, the Bulls have been owed the Portland Trailblazers first round pick. And that pick has always been lottery protected. So that means that if they didn't make the playoffs, Portland's draft pick stayed with them, and the Bulls would get the next year's draft as long as it was not in the lottery. And Portland has just been a pretty bad team, and they've been in the lottery every year. So kick the can down the road. Finally, this year, they made the postseason. So they're looking at the number 15 pick. So with the Bulls' original pick currently stands at number 9, you're looking at most likely drafting 9 and 15. I run a lot of mock simulators, and so you're looking at either pick 9 and 15 or 10 and 15. So 2 mid-round, first-round picks. I don't know what the Bulls are going to do with that, if they're going to try to package that to move up. But the hope is that on May 10th, when they hold up that number 1 pick, that it belongs to the Bulls. And then the Blackhawks, conversely, they were owed Florida's first. And we didn't know it for a long time because but that pick was a top 10 protected pick from Florida. And Florida has been down most of the season. I thought as Blackhawk fans, we were super excited because we were going to get a top 10 pick from Florida. And then we find out it's protected. So with the last 2 days of the season, there was a chance that the Blackhawks could get that Florida pick this year. Had Florida won a game and ended up at that number 9 slot with the NHL draft, you can move up to 2 picks down from where you are. And it's actually more likely than you moving up 2 spots. So moving down 2 spots then would have left them at 11, and the Blackhawks would have got the number 11 pick. But the way it worked out is Florida ended up number 8. So even if they move the maximum 2 slots down, they're still number 10, and it's a top 10 protected pick. So Florida keeps that pick this year no matter what. But the Blackhawks do get a top 4 pick because they can fall up to 2, and they're the number 2 seed. So worst they can draft is 4. So anywhere between 1 and 4 is where the Blackhawks can go. And we're a couple weeks away from that NHL draft lottery drawing too. So we'll see what happens there. And it's funny with the Blackhawks, they weren't good this year, obviously, because they potentially the number 1 pick in this draft. But this season was far from a lost season. You saw Connor Bedard finally become an NHL star. You saw that play jump. Antoine Frondel took a big jump coming over and looking like a top 6 forward. And if you can see a few other players taking that next step forward, this could be a pretty solid, sneaky good team next year. Fingers crossed that they win the lottery and they can get Gavin McKenna and really infuse this team with some talent. So I want to wrap this up talking some baseball here. Is Cubs, we talked last week and we were extremely down on the Cubs. And they were in last place. They just got trounced by the Phillies. Just pummeled. And it wasn't looking good. They come back and they beat Philadelphia game 2, 10-4. Colin Ray pitched a solid game. He gave up a 3-run home run in the second early on, but after that it became a get right game for Michael Busch, Bregman, and PCA, and the Cubs came back to win 10-4. And then that rubber game, the Wednesday game, the Cubs just absolutely dominated that one, 11-2 win over the Phillies. Shota Imanaga with a back-to-back really good games. They actually won this one. And you saw Swanson and Horner carry the offensive load. And then you bounced that Mets series. And at that point, the Mets had lost 8 in a row going into this series. And when you lose that many in a row, your opponent has, I mean, for me, that's got to be one of those mental things. You're like, okay, well, I can't lose this. I don't want to be the team that breaks that streak and lets them get the victory. You know, when you got a team on the ropes, you want to make sure you put them away and use that win to help propel you up in the standings. So first game of that series, the Cubs win 12-4. Cabrera probably had his worst game as a Cub, but it was still plenty good enough to get the win, and they just absolutely lit up the Mets pitcher Senga. Saturday, they came back with a 4-2 win. Tyone had a great game, and then they had that big early home run by Kelly that propelled them to the victory. So you knew they were going to win that series because they won first 2 games. And then today, you had an extra inning 2-1 win. Assad had a really good start. The bullpen held up, and Michael Conforto with a double in the 9th to tie that game up. So you were down 1-0 in the 9th, and you get the double from Assad, drives in a run, ties it up. You win it in extras. Huge win. Big difference between losing to a team that was on a 10-game losing streak to just barely win the series, to pulling that win out, knocking the Mets to an 11-game losing streak and taking that sweep. And with that, you move to 12-9. You're still in last place in the division, but you're only a game and a half back. And if you keep playing to this level, you are going to be right at the top of this division. There's no way the Cardinals are this good. They're going to fall back down. The Pirates are going to have their ebbs and flows. I think they've got a lot of talent, but talent's really young, and they still got a lot of gaps in talents in that team. That's really going to hurt them over the long run. So I don't expect Pittsburgh to be up there. I think Cincinnati's got a very good team. It's can they hold up, because they don't have a huge margin of error. For me, it's the Milwaukee Brewers. Can you keep them at bay? And they started off so hot in the beginning of the season, and they've cooled down a little bit. They're still very good, but that team is so good that you've got to keep an eye on them and stay within striking distance of them. I know Alex always says you don't win a division in April, but you can lose the division in April. And the Cubs are in last place, but they're only a game and a half out. So when the Phillies come to town this week, hopefully you can win that series too and keep this up. Because the Cubs are on a nice 5-game win streak here. And you look, and Nico Horner, Ian Happ, and Moises Ballesteros have just been killing it. I'm so happy to say I was wrong about Moises Ballesteros. I was saying, what can you really expect from him? A true rookie DH. How much can he give to you? And Ballesteros just looks like a hitting phenom out there. He's got almost 1,000 OPS as a rookie and looks really good. He's a guy I would lock up early. You look at some of the other teams in baseball, and they've got these young players that they're locking up early. Gives that player the financial security, saves you from having to go through that arbitration stuff, gets rid of those arbitration years, lock them up to a big contract, and keep Ballesteros here for a long time. I love that kid. Sox, on the other hand, it's frustrating. Their record says they're not a good team. They're in last place, or tied for last place. They're 5 games back on Cleveland, which, 20 games into the season is not a good place to be 5 games back. It makes it really tough to catch up. But they're not a terrible team. It's the fear we had going into the season. Can you, could you have added more veteran players to help bridge this gap that you have? And what happens here is, on offense, you're relying on a lot of young players. They don't always hit consistently. Your pitching is a placeholder pitching staff. All of your future pitchers are either just coming up this week or they're still down in the minors. You're looking at future bullpen or future starting rotation, and they're not here yet for the most part. You've got a placeholder staff. And then you've got, a hit or miss bullpen. And the problem is on any given night, any one of those can be good or great, but the other two could just shit the bed and leave you with a loss. So this week, you had a 3-game set with the Tampa Bay Rays, and you got swept. So the first one, Tuesday, was 8-5 loss to Tampa. That was the Noah Schultz first start, and it probably wasn't the start that you'd hope for with him. Goes 4 1/3, gives up 4 runs, 3 earned, gives up 4 walks. But Murakami hits a nice home run. But you end up losing that game. Wednesday, you lose 8-3 to Tampa. Sean Burke not a good game. 5 1/3, 4 earned runs, gives up more walks than strikeouts, and you just got no offense. Just a bad performance all around from the White Sox. And then Thursday, you 5-3 lost to Tampa. That was a bullpen game, and you were right there in it. Your offense was all on 2 home runs pretty much. But you were right in this until Sir Anthony Dominguez gave up, had a bad inning and just really crapped the bed. And you walked away with the loss. Yeah, you snatched defeat from the jaws of victory there. But the one thing you could talk about is Acuna. That guy up until Thursday his slugging was identical to his batting average, which means every single hit he got was a single this whole season. He finally gets a double and elevates his slugging percentage to over his batting average, just slightly. Friday, you come back with I know we talked about sometimes those A's games are kind of get-right games, but the A's are actually pretty decent this year. They're tied for first place right now in the AL West, and the White Sox get them and clobber them that first game 9-2. You got Martin gave you an absolute gem of a game, 7 innings pitch, only 1 earned run. Murakami, another home run. Saturday, you absolutely blow a game. You get a 7-6 loss to the A's in 11 innings. Eric Fetty gave you a decent enough game, 4 2/3, 3 earned runs. You get a home run from Montgomery, a home run from Murakami, and you blow that game in with the bullpen. Eric Fetty gave you a good enough game to win. Just couldn't hang out with the bullpen. And then you get the rubber match today, win 7-4 against the A's. Noah Schultz, his second start, and this is the one you kind of expected from him. 5 innings pitched, 1 earned run, 6 strikeouts to 1 walk. You had Montgomery with a home run, Murakami with a home run, and that's a theme. You're seeing these two guys just homer every game seemingly, and you come up with the win. And Gary sent me over a stat that I want to read. And it's that Murakami is only the second player in baseball history to start the first month of his career with 2 separate three games in a row with a home run. I know it's kind of an obscure fact, but it's kind of cool. And Murakami is a nice pickup, an international free agent. You should probably look to extend him. Gary texts me like every other day. They need to extend him, and he's right. He's absolutely right. You've got a guy who's playing well. I know that batting average is just not there, but that slugging is there. He's just hitting bombs. He's another Adam Dunn, which is what we thought he would be coming into it. But lock that guy up. He's not going to cost you an arm or leg. You're going to have to spend money next year. You're going to have the money to spend. Sign him up. It looks good that you reward an international player. Build that Japanese pipeline like you did with the Cuban one to bring talent into this team. You're headed to Arizona after this, and Arizona is not a great team, but they're not a terrible team by any stretch. They're about the same record as the Cubs and middle of the pack in that division. They're like third in that division. But like I said, is the White Sox need to figure out how to overcome some of the limitations they have. You're getting basically no batting average out of these players. You look at the team batting average, and it's brutal. Mydroth is batting 250. Vargas is batting 173. Murakami's batting 208. Edgar Caro's batting 170. Colston Montgomery is batting 200. Murray is batting 227. Antonacci's batting 125. Acuna's batting 197. Benintendi's batting 197. I get it. You've been hitting home runs, and your on base isn't terrible, but man, that batting average is just brutal. And I know batting average is not nearly as important statistic as it was when I was a kid, but yeah, you can't just keep winning baseball games like this. There's going to be games where that wind is blowing in and you're not getting those home runs. And if you can't drive runners home with small ball, you're not going to get that far. They've got to figure that out. And that's what a veteran bat would have done. And Benintendi is just roasted. That guy stinks. You got a 197 average. I know the slugging isn't, it's not anything to write home about, but it's not the worst in the world. But man, you've got to get better. You've got to get better with driving those runners home. And it's evident. You look at that Saturday game, you lost by 1 run in extra innings. You left 34 runners on base. 34. That's insane. Let me bring that box score up here. So you had stats here. All right. Benintendi, which he had batting leadoff. Why? I don't know, because he's terrible. So you had Andrew Benintendi on batting leadoff. He left 5 runners on base. Vargas left 3. Colston Montgomery left 3. Pereira left 5. Sam Antonacci left 8 runners on base. Mydroth 4. Hill 3. Reese McGuire 3. I know that you won on Friday big, but again, this continues to be an issue. Benintendi left 4 guys on base at leadoff. Murakami left 2. Vargas 3. Pereira 6. Caro 2. Mydroth 3. Acuna 3. You can't leave that many runners on base that consistently and win baseball games. You've got to find ways to drive these guys home. And part of that's going to be some players just have to step up and start hitting better. The other one is stop batting with a stupid lineup. Benintendi's terrible. They've moved him to 9th today. Much better spot for him. He's just not a good player. Move somebody else up to that leadoff spot to find a way to get consistent run production. That's just the key there. You had Mydroth today, and he had a good game. Went 2 for 5, but he doesn't have a killer batting average either. But at least his OPS is significantly higher than Andrew Benintendi, who batted 9th. And it's the Cubs, for better or worse. They leave got a lot of guys on base too, but they've got a little bit better mix. And you've got guys like Nico Horner that's killing it. But, you have over there, I know last week Alex and I disagreed a bit on who's struggling more. Michael Busch is batting 164. P. Crow Armstrong is batting 222. That Michael Busch slugging is 192. He's slugging 192. PCA slugging 309. That is nothing to write home about, but that's significantly better than 192. I'm concerned about both, but man, am I concerned about Michael Busch. Baseball in Chicago, and it's funny because if like when you have 2 baseball teams, you can do that kind of funny thing. Like, oh, who can we combine from these 2 teams to make one good team? And really, with the White Sox and the Cubs, you don't I guess PCA is your center fielder. Ian Happ is your left fielder. And Suzuki's you're just taking the Cubs outfield. And it's not necessarily the best outfield. Suzuki's he's got a 265 slug. Ian Happ's doing real well. He's hitting real well. But combined, you can't find three just absolutely solid outfielders. That's kind of funny. But yeah, I mean, the White Sox, they also struggle because the Cubs, when they assembled that team, are they a superstar team? No. They got good players, yes. But what they did was they tried to get down to fundamentals. They're a really good fielding team. Every spot in the infield is a good fielder, especially at second and short. You have elite defenders there. Bush is a pretty good first baseman. Bregman's a pretty good third baseman. You've got that infield solid. You have arguably the best defensive center fielder in baseball. Happ is pretty darn good. And if you ever feel like you need to cover for Suzuki, and Suzuki's not a terrible outfielder like you've had in the past, you can at least shade over both your left fielder and your center fielder and cover a little bit for Suzuki, because you've got Ian Happ's a pretty fast guy and he's a pretty good fielder, former center fielder playing left, and PCA's just got range all day. So you can at least shade that and makes you have a pretty damn good defense. And on top of that, you've got some heads up base runners and some good base runners. PCA is just an absolute menace on the base paths. And you've got a lot of guys that are just really heads up, like Dansby Swanson, Nico Horner, Alex Bregman, that are just really smart, good base runners. The White Sox need to get back to fundamentals. You've got to improve. They're not the best defense. They're not the best base runners. That batting average is low. You've got a makeshift starting rotation. So it's almost like a bunch of things have to go right for you to win. And the White Sox, like I said, have not been playing terribly. They're not playing well enough to win. And if they could figure out something consistently, like fielding to help with run protection, or you could add some sort of veteran bat somehow, I think that could really bolster things and help get you to where you want to be. It's, you've been a 100-loss team for several years now. I think you could be a 75-plus win team if you just get down to brass tacks and start playing some fundamentally better baseball. It also helps if somebody gets hot. Murakami or Montgomery gets on a hot streak and just starts clobbering the ball. One guy can change the dynamic of a team. And if you can get somebody hot and mediocre pitching and the bullpen just not imploding, you could rattle off a few wins there, especially against some bad teams. Like I said, I don't think the White Sox are a bad team. They were not put together well, and there was a lot of flaws. And flaws are not a death sentence, but when you have enough flaws, it becomes an exercise of everything working out to be victorious. Whereas if you have that ability to mask flaws or minimize flaws, it's a lot easier to come up with victories. You find more pathways to get those victories. With the way the Cubs or the White Sox are constructed, you don't have a lot of leeway to cover up when mistakes happen or when you get a bad performance. There's just not a lot of wiggle room there. So hopefully the White Sox can go on a win streak starting here in Arizona this week, because I don't think they're a terrible team, and they're not nearly as bad as their record, I don't think. I don't really have much else. We will have a ton more next week when Alex is back and we've had the NFL draft. So be prepared for that. Make sure you dial in. And that's going to do it for this episode of Bill Swerski Sports Talk Chicago. I want to thank everybody so much for listening. Please hit subscribe however you listen to podcasts, whether it's iTunes, Stitcher, YouTube, Google Play, Spotify, etc. Share this podcast with your friends. How to grow the show. Follow us on social media at Swerski Sports, Facebook.com/Swerski Sports, SwerskiSports.com, or Swerski_sports_podcast on Instagram. ShyFanPat2 for Alex on Twitter/X. AlexanderJPatCreative.com for all the cool stuff that Alex does. And again, thank you so much for listening. And until next time, bear down.
Cubs win! What a lucky break! The good Lord wants the Cubs to win!
We thank Ditka and God for all they have provided.
Cubs win! Cubs win! Cubs win!
Oh, I don't want her. You can have her. She's a Packer fan. She can't fit in my van.
And she looks like
Remember, New Yorkers, smoking crack is not legal on planes. Bears 31 to -7.
the Bears. Oh, when the Bears go bearing down